Hi everyone, I'm Sehr and welcome to the latest episode of the S.E.H.R show. Today we have a very special guest for you. He's one of the top real estate trainers and coaches in the world. He's highly sought after to speak at real estate conferences, brokerages, and he's worked with some of the top teams in the industry. And I'm so grateful that I get to have this conversation with him and speak about being the best possible agent that you can be, what it truly means to be a leader, and usable advice on building out a successful team. I'm so excited to introduce everyone to Jared James. Jared, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Hey, of course, I'm glad we can make it work, and I'm looking forward to this.
So Jared, I initially heard you speak at one of our brokerage events at Royal LePage here in Toronto, and my media team has been trying to coordinate having you on this show for a while now, so I'm very glad that we get to speak one-on-one like this. And I currently have a team of 5. I'm lucky to be doing 450 deals a year, and I personally also want to grow, become better, increase our volume. So while the S.E.H.R show is about providing value to our viewers, I think I'll personally be able to pick up a lot of value, which I can implement into my own business. So thank you for that.
I can imagine. So 5 people, how many of those are admin and how many of those are producing?
4 agents, 1 admin.
Doing 450 transactions.
Yes, 450 pre-construction. So my entire business here in Toronto is pre-construction.
Wow. When this is all done, I'm going to say a prayer for your admin. 450. Have you guys noticed any kind of, I know the Toronto market, we follow it closely, obviously, because we have a lot of people there. Have you noticed any shifts yet or anything? Or
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to start with a question that's relevant to what's currently happening in the market right now. So in Toronto, the past few years, things have been on fire. But in the past month, we've seen quite a cool down in demand, and that's mainly been caused by rising interest rates and new government policy. So as an agent, how does one stay resilient and adapt in a fast-changing market?
Well, I think first off, it's funny because the market that we've gone through, it was almost like anybody who could, pass a breathing test on a glass and get in front of people could win. It's like anybody who watched Selling Sunset could get into real estate, even though that show couldn't be any less about selling anything. It's basically just drama that occasionally takes place in a real estate office. But I think taking into account, history, like where we are and putting it into perspective, a lot of people are looking at rising interest rates and don't understand that rising interest rates are still historically low. They're just not what they were in December. And when you look at the market that we're going into, there's going to be 2 classes of people. You're going to have your pros and you're going to have your amateurs. And unfortunately, when you go through a market like we just went through, you get a whole lot of amateurs. You get a whole lot of people who enter the market who can just get in front of people and, houses sell themselves and condos sell themselves and, just be friendly, smile and have a good admin. And, heading into the market that we're heading into now, things are going to tighten. And, the people who are actually pros, the people who actually know how to sell are going to win. It's one of my pet peeves of our industry is how we run so much from being called salespeople. Everybody's like, I'm a matchmaker. I'm a, whatever it is you call yourself. If you don't understand sales, the only thing you're going to call yourself in the next market is broke. Because you need to know how to sell. Selling is a good thing, and everyone's in sales, by the way. Like a stay-at-home mom is in sales. They're trying to convince that kid to do what it is they want them to do, why it's in their best interest to do that, And so we're heading into a market now where a lot of people have gotten a little bit lazy and rested on their laurels, and they're going to kind of expect that to be able to carry into the new market we're heading into, and that's just not the case. Pros are going to win. So train yourself. Infrastructure matters. We live in a world now. I love the fact you said that you started a team. That was years ago, that was a rarity. And now it seems to be the thing people are starting to understand is that people don't want to work with a solopreneur. No different than you wouldn't go to a doctor's office and have the doctor call you to make sure you're going to show up, have the doctor take your insurance, have the doctor take you to the waiting room, have the doctor do your weight and height, have the doctor, like we understand that people specialize. And so, we're heading into a world where people are one-click shopping on Amazon. They're buying their groceries on an app. They're doing it's a different world now. And so our business, our infrastructure has to change in order to meet the consumer where they're at. And that's a major change that has to happen heading into the market that we're going into, because there's a lot. I mean, how many agents are in your area? There's a lot of agents. There's a lot of options. And people make decisions in the world that we're in today based on ease of use. In our area, Uber's a huge thing, and everybody's like, well, Uber's cheaper. No, it's not. Uber's more expensive than taxis. It's ease of use. It's that I can call, wait here and talk to you, wait till the last second, they tell me it's there, and then I go out. And so when you look at the world that we're heading into now from a real estate perspective, although all of the headlines talk about how agents are going to be disrupted and they're going to be, kicked aside and some app is going to take over the business, it's just not true. The number of people who continue to use a professional when buying or selling a home or a condo keeps going up and up and up. But how they're finding that person has changed. The experience they expect has changed. If you're watching or listening to this and you still have a fax number on your business card, you might want to update some things. It's a new world we live in. I said to an agent the other day, they said, well, sometimes fax is a quicker option. And I said, well, why don't you just send it over in a pigeon's mouth? It might get there quicker. Like, if I see a fax number on your business card, I'm probably going elsewhere. And a lot of consumers feel that way. They want to work with a professional who is working in the year that we actually live in. And so pros are going to win, amateurs are going to fall by the wayside, and you're going to see a market when it starts to tighten where the opportunity is going to be greater than ever, but a smaller percent of professionals are going to capitalize on that. And that's how it should be.
So Jared, for an agent that wants to expand and leverage other people, where do you suggest that they start? Like, what are some important things that they need to know or some of the traits that they need to possess?
Yeah, so you're saying like an agent that wants to leverage their business, wants to leverage other people, like where do they start hiring and all that kind of stuff? That's simple. I mean, look, the business has changed so much. I used to say that your first hire was an admin. I don't say that anymore. Your admin's your second hire now. Your first hire is always a TC, a transaction coordinator. And the reason for that is because there's no risk. I'm well aware that the types of personalities that get into real estate, like generally speaking, like I guarantee if you and I hung out, you're not normal. Like like normal people don't do well in real estate. Like there's a little something off. Like, and everybody who really succeeds in real estate, they're a little different, and they're control freaks. And so, that first hire of that TC, that transaction coordinator, is not only just for them, but it's also for you. It teaches you to delegate with no risk because you only pay when a file closes. Okay. And so whether you're day one in the industry or you're, day 30,001, a transaction coordinator, you hire them immediately. When you have a lot of transactions, you pay more. When you have none, you pay nothing. But what makes them great at being a transaction coordinator, what makes you great at being an agent, is what makes you suck at being a transaction coordinator. They're two different personality profiles, okay? So when you look at a TC, that's your first transaction coordinator. They save you 8 to 12 hours per transaction. They make you look professional to the people you work with. They give the same experience to everybody because they're following a custom workflow. It's just a no-brainer, and there's no risk. Second is admin. And a lot of times people will try to mix those, and they'll go, well, I'll get an admin, and they'll do TC. Yeah. And the problem with that, and I hear that all the time, they're like, well, that's what I.
Sorry to interrupt. So the transaction coordinator is different from a buyer agent completely. Is that correct?
Oh God, yeah, 100%. Like, and yeah, we'll get to that. So it's TC admin. Your admin, your assistant, your admin, whatever. Their main goal when they're coming in is not just setting up showings and all that stuff. It's marketing. Like they should be making you more money than you're spending on them. And the problem when you allow an admin who's the same personality profile as a TC, a transaction coordinator, that's why people mix them. The problem when you allow them to do both is when you start to grow and you start to do business, they're going to run out of time because you're going to be doing so many transactions that their main role is going to become TC. And the problem is they're going to have to get rid of something. And what do you think they're going to get rid of? The TC work, which is ongoing transactions, or the marketing? They're going to drop the marketing. And yet that's such a crucial part. And then next from there is after the TC admin is then buyer agent. And I would say buyer agents. The biggest mistake people make when hiring a buyer agent is they hire one at a time. That's such a mistake. When you hire one, there's no competition. You don't know if they're doing well. You don't know if they're not. When they come to you and they tell you that your leads suck, you have no way of knowing if it's true or not. But when you hire a minimum of two, I like to see 2 to 3. There's no risk. They're not on salary. There's no risk. You're bringing them in. There's competition now. You can see how one is performing with the leads that are coming in compared to another one. And then another thing that doesn't get talked about enough is the main core of your real estate business, the thing that really matters, the thing that's not sexy at all, so no one talks about it, but it matters more than anything, is your database. Yeah. And when you add multiple team members like that, multiple buyer agents, whether they stick around or not, you just added all of their SOI to your database because they bring it in. And so whether they make it in your business with you or whether you promote them to customer, which is a nice way of saying this isn't working out, at the end of the day, you grew your database, which is going to grow your long-term success in this industry. Mm-hmm. We could go so far beyond that, by the way, but right now I'm just saying TC, admin, buyers, agents.
Earlier this year, I feel that I personally hired too many agents too fast without doing my proper due diligence. As a result of that, the turnover was higher than it normally is. What is the best way to keep this from happening? And how do you go about hiring those right people? Because it can't just be anybody.
You've got to understand, first off, I don't think we pay enough attention in our industry to personality profiles and stages of life. And so what I mean by that is that we in this industry just grab people based on availability instead of actual ability, meaning that everybody's made up different. You're a team leader, which means I kind of know where your personality profile is, which means you probably wouldn't make a great admin. And the idea that a buyer's agent, somebody who drives people around for 6 hours a day, tells jokes at every house and tries to get everybody to get along is not a different personality than a listing agent who goes in and tries to close within an hour. Those are two different personalities. And so when you talk about the right personality for certain roles, we need to understand there's many different profiles you can go by, but let's just take DISC profile because it's the one that most people understand. An admin is very SC. They're very steady and conscientious and they're task oriented. They're very, when you start to talk about a buyer's agent, right? That buyer's agent is going to have a little bit more right? Influential. They're more of a salesperson. They're different. And this is the mistake people make when they grab somebody who's an agent and they try to make them their admin. They're like, well, you're available. And basically what they do is they find someone struggling in the business and they go, oh, you suck at your job. Why don't you come here and work with me? And maybe you could suck over here too. And maybe I'll be your financial bridge to get you through and then you'll leave me. And the truth is that agent never should have been an admin. Somebody who's an admin and SC personality is scared to death of commission-only work. They don't want to do that, right? So we need to pay attention to personality profiles. People are who they are, not who we want them to be. We don't get mad at a pear tree when it won't produce an apple. We're like, what the heck? Why don't you get? I need an apple. Well, it's a pear tree, so it's never going to produce an apple. And when you look at people, they will try to be to you what it is they think they need to be in order to get a job. And it doesn't mean that's who they are because it's only a matter of time before they become who they actually are. So we need to pay attention to personality profiles, but we also need to pay attention to stages of life. Some people are not made to join a team. Somebody who has a very high D driver, like that kind of personality is probably not going to stick around as a buyer's agent. They're too independent. They're too much. They're a team leader. It's not going to happen long term. And so we need to have proper perspective on that. And so we need to pay attention to who these people are and not try to fit people into our model just because, we need them right now. Isn't it amazing how it's kind of like being in a bad relationship in the beginning where it's like everyone sees it. Everyone around you is like, no, that dude is a douchebag. Everyone can see it. But you so badly want it to work out, you don't see it. And you're like, no, you don't understand. No, you don't know him like I know him. He's great. He's awesome. And then it turns out everybody was right. That's kind of what happens when people fill their teams. Is they're like, oh my God, I so need people to fill these roles. You're available. I don't have time to find anybody else. Can you just please be what I need you to be? And it very rarely pays off because we don't have the patience to actually wait for the right people. And while we think we're saving time, we actually spend more time having to get rid of them or having them leave, fixing their mistakes, reassigning their people. Patience, stage of life, personality profiles, these are all things you have to look at when adding to your team.
This is an industry where everybody either wants to be number one, they want to be part of a top team. So they come in, but they get very demoralized when they see that they're not making transactions that quickly changes. So what advice would you give someone in that scenario?
Like they're watching HGTV, they're watching Selling Sunset.
Yeah.
And they're just like, look at this. You get in and you drive Mercedes. Day one. Yeah. This is the industry. So this is why expectation is so important. It's kind of like, it's kind of like if something's being delivered to your house or your condo or whatever, and they're like, hey, we'll be there between 8 and 12. And then when they show up at 10:30, you're like, hey, they said between 8 and 12, that's fine. Whereas if they had said to you, we'll be there at 8 a.m. and they showed up at 10:30, you'd be on fire. You'd be like, are you kidding me? You're 2.5 hours late. And so what's the difference between those two things? The difference was expectation, right? The difference was the expectation was set up front. And I don't think we do a good enough job when bringing people in because we're trying to make them so excited and we're trying to, we want to give them the upside. But at the same time, we need to give them the proper expectation of what this is. 87% of agents fail in the first 5 years. Here's why. Here's how you avoid that. Nobody gets to this place without all of this. I get from people all the time. I'll go to events and you get all these people who want to be speakers. They want to be coaches. And I even hate that word because I feel like in today's world, everybody who can't sell real estate becomes a coach. But it's just one of those things where I get from people, they'll say, I want to be you. They're like, I want to, you're traveling all over the world and whatever. Like, I want to be you. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, being me is not for everyone. Like, it's a lot of loneliness. It's a lot of, place to place to place, long airlines and different hotels and different, and it's just, it's just a lot of that and nobody sees that, but that's the image. Right. And so I'm always kind of like, when that happens, I try to let them know, hey, there's a lot to it. Everyone's not built like this. Everyone's not. And so part of that expectation when you bring an agent on is not only letting them know the reality of what it's probably going to take, but also the reality of the type of person it takes. When you're an agent, let's face it, even when you're a top producer, there are times that deals fall apart and you think to yourself, will I ever have a closing again? There are times when you are absolutely on top of the world. Like you are just, I'm killing it. I'm the best agent in the world, you feel like. And then there are times where you feel like an absolute loser and you're just like, I hate this. I hate my life. I just want a regular job. I just want a salary. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And that emotional roller coaster is not for everyone. And so that expectation's got to be created up front. Can you handle this? Can you not handle this? Because it's coming. And that way, when it comes, it doesn't surprise them. Just like the service person that shows up at 10:30, but said they'd come at 8 a.m. When they said 8 to 12 and show up at 10:30, you're happy. But if they said 8 a.m., you'd be pissed. And so we've got to get proper expectation. You can make a lot of money. You can be amazing. But most people won't. I had this talk with my son yesterday. He's the one day after getting into real estate. And I'm like, dude, I'd love to help you do that one day. And I'm like, yeah, you can make a crap ton of money. But I'm like, I'd personally be coaching you and it's going to suck. I can't have a kid get into real estate and fail. You understand? And so, just if he decides to do that, oh boy, where there'll be some expectations set and he will be on a schedule.
So as a leader, you've got to set those expectations. And as you grow, like as I've been growing my team, I see my job expand beyond just being a real estate broker and now being more of that leader. Do you believe that anyone can be a leader?
No, everyone could be a leader. I mean, at one point of their lives or another, but not everybody's a team leader. Those are two different things. One is consistent and permanent, and one is in specific situations. When my younger son gets together with his niece and nephew, whatever, or his nephews, whatever, and they're 3 years old, he's the leader. It doesn't mean that when he goes into another situation, he's a natural leader. And I'm not saying he is or isn't. I'm just saying, like, there are situations that call for people to be leaders, but not everybody is a team leader. And again, it's a very specific profile. What's that?
So what does it mean to be a leader in real estate?
Yeah. So as a team leader, I mean, it's like anything. It's like being the CEO. It's like being, it means that, yeah, there's a lot of limelight. It means your name's on a lot of things, but there's a price to pay. There was an old line, and this has always stuck with me. And it was repeated in, do you remember that movie, The Departed?
Yeah.
With Jack Nicholson and what's his name? Mark Wahlberg and everything. There's a line in there where Jack Nicholson is kind of like talking to Matt Damon. And he says to him, the crown is heavy. And what he basically means is, yeah, I'm the king. I'm the king of this mob. I'm the king of this gang, but the crown is heavy. Everyone's trying to kill me. Every day I'm trying to, evade the feds. Every day is, and so I'd say, not on that level, but yeah, anytime you take any kind of a leadership position, you have to be ready to, take on what comes with that. And you don't get all the benefits of the doubt that everybody else gets. When I walk into my office and I've got my employees and I've got these people, I don't get to have a bad day. Meaning I come in and I just go, whatever, guys, just leave me alone, whatever. Like it is my job at that moment to pick people up. It is my job to change the environment in that place. It is my job to take the arrows, to take the criticism. It is my job to take on the pressures of payrolls and production and all of it's my job to take them on so that they don't have to. So no, it's not for everyone. It comes with a price, and not everyone is built to take that. We've got a lot of people that are team leaders right now that really are better marketers, or would be better listing agents, or would be better, whatever, but they make themselves team leaders because they don't know what else they're supposed to do. And they've never heard of the idea that you're something else, but in the end, they'd be happier doing what they're best at.
So as your team does grow larger, how does the mindset need to change for a leader?
Okay, so as the team grows, what you find is that, look at a team like a startup. In the beginning when you're smaller and it's you and an admin and a TC, what you'll notice is that admin has like 8 roles and you've got 15 roles. And, it's like you're like a startup, and as you grow and grow and grow, what happens is that people get more and more specialized. So down the road, you have a specific social media manager, marketer, or like a marketing manager. Whereas before, marketing was being handled by the admin along with everything else, along with financial accounting, along with, so the mindset as you grow is a couple things. Number one, how do I get people to be more specialized? How do I fill these roles, get people more specialized, which is better for our team? But also is, how do I start replacing myself? Depending on whatever your goal is. Some people don't have that goal to replace their self, but on some level, everybody does. Maybe they don't want to be showing properties anymore. Maybe they don't want to go do listing. Maybe they don't want to, whatever it is, you've got to determine what that is before you start so that you know how your mentality needs to change, right? So that whatever that North Star is, whatever that end game is, every decision runs through that prism of where is it I'm trying to go, right? But the ultimate goal for me of a team leader should be each step of the way, how am I replacing myself in this situation so I can build an organism that ultimately fuels other things that I'm passionate about. Because, after a certain amount of time in real estate, you're going to get bored with real estate. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to build an organization that once you separate a little bit, it falls apart, The reason that I'm able to go and do, speeches all over the world and deal with people and whatever, and my company still runs and, people still sign up for coaching because we have an organization. In the beginning, I was doing everything. I was sales, I was technology, I was support, I was, not anymore, And so you should be looking little by little by little, how do I replace myself to the ultimate end of where I'm trying to go? Because if you do it right, your real estate business will actually fund other things that you're passionate about. And really, that's how you remain passionate about real estate, is when you know that it is funding those things that you're passionate about. So figure out where it is you're trying to go. And then all of your decisions filter through that prism to figure out, how do I replace myself? How do I little by little by little start to remove myself from being everything to everyone?
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about company culture these days. So what's the best way to create this culture of team synergy?
Yeah, so we have a real problem right now because, with COVID, I mean, my God, in Toronto, you guys went absolutely nuts.
Like in February of this year?
I mean, it was crazy. Like, literally, like the advantage I get from going all over is I see how everyone handles things different. And half the time I'm like, is this a different virus everywhere? Because I'm going over here and doing large events, and over here we can barely make eye contact. Everybody thinks they're going to die, So I'm like, what is going on here? But one of the things that came from that, because what you find is that people are very extreme, and they always go way one way or way the other. And the extreme that we went to during COVID was that offices are gone. There'll be no more. Everyone's working from home. Everyone, and that poses a real problem, because when you start talking about company culture, that's not built on Zoom. Like that's not through emails. Like that's through actual connection. That's from actual relationships being built. That's from actual outings and things happening, and being there for each other and having tough days and doing, not just having a 30-minute weekly meeting on Zoom. Yeah. And so, we have a real problem right now in our industry and many other industries where everyone's coming back to the buzzword of culture, because everyone said culture, and yet everyone's jumping job to job to job because they don't feel connected anywhere. How do you, when everybody's virtual, when everybody's remote, and I'm working from home, somebody else offers 10 cents more an hour. Why don't I just jump to that? I've got no connection. How do you train people? How do you mentor people? So we've got a real problem right now in our industry from the perspective, in all industries, of how do we build culture? One of my friends wrote an article for Forbes magazine about how everyone was going virtual. And then he came to me about 6 months ago and he's like, boy, I wish I didn't write that article, because his whole company's falling apart. He's got no culture anymore. Like, he's got no connection with anybody anymore. He's got no, so when you talk about culture, you almost have to go counter culture right now. And I'm not saying everybody has to, in real estate, you can't require everybody to be in every day, but you do need to find ways to be together. You like Zoom is great, but it's not the level of connection that in person is. There's a big difference between a YouTube video and being at a concert. Okay. And to try to act like those are the same thing is crazy. There's a big difference between connecting with your colleagues and connecting with your team and doing a Zoom happy hour, And so to build culture right now, you almost have to go counter culture, and you have to go a little different than everybody's going right now, and understand that the role that people play and the role that connection plays. And it's so funny to me that we're an industry that has been preaching for decades that we are a contact sport, that we're a people business. And then the whole industry went, we're not going to be around people. And it's like, yeah, that's going to work out real well for long-term business. Good luck with that. So go counterculture if you want to build culture.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I've seen is, because we were personally locked down for so long, I was trying to encourage the agents, you guys, to make videos. You got to be on social media. So I just don't understand how there's still so many agents who say, no, we don't like videos. We don't want to post anything.
It's a problem too, because consumers are used to video now. Like, consumers, like stay-at-home moms were doing Zoom happy hours every day, just beating the crap out of their livers. And you still got agents that won't get on video because they don't like how they look and sound, which is exactly how they look and sound in person.
What advice would you give those people who are not willing to pivot and make those moves?
My advice, first off, is good luck moving forward. And then, there's a couple things. As far as like really getting used to and really getting comfortable with video, there's a few things you can do, right? One is do things like this. If you're not comfortable with video, then don't think that right in the beginning you have to do solo videos, because I think that's what kind of scares people. So maybe do an interview, or have your team with you, or talk about something, or do a podcast with 4 people and do a conversation and start to get comfortable, right? Another thing you can do is just set up your camera, your phone. Remember when this used to be a phone? Like, I do everything but talk to people on here. But like set up your camera and hit record, and then just go to work and get used to it being on. and just, just go for it, start doing video messages back to your close friends and family. So like, instead of like replying by text, reply with a video and send it to them, to somebody you trust, like your accountability. Start getting comfortable with it, right? Because as uncomfortable as you may be with video and that connection that brings and the sound of your voice and everything else, you know what's even more uncomfortable? Being broke. Like that is more uncomfortable. And the world we live in today, where people are finding their agents online and on their phones and on, these places where they're connecting with someone, where that video is connecting with them, you can't afford to move forward anymore and say, it's not the way we did it growing up. It's like, well, I didn't grow up driving, but I figured it out. It's just, when you look at mechanics, my brother was a mechanic, and when he first got into mechanicking, whatever you want to call it, he didn't need to understand computers. And then the world changed. And now to fix newer cars, you have to understand computers. And he had to completely change and get retrained on this whole mechanic thing. When you got into real estate originally, content, video, all of these things were not part of your job description. But guess what? The car was updated. And now you've got to understand content creation and video and these things. It's part of your job now.
So when you're coaching your clients, Jared, how do you talk to someone who says, we're having trouble finding our passion?
Yeah, well, that goes back to what I said before, right? Because they're looking to the wrong things to find passion, okay? Passion, first off, really can also come from just being grateful, right? Like when you're not passionate about the idea that, for example, I hit a point where I wasn't passionate about going to another airport. I was like, oh my God, another freaking airport. Like, I can't do this. I can't, you know what I mean? Like when I was doing a lot of events and doing whatever. And then you just kind of get grateful and you remind yourself that there are people who were born in some other country by no, means of their own, who will make 10 cents an hour for the rest of their lives. They will work slave labor. The best thing that can happen to them is death, because it's just like, this life sucks. It's like, seriously. And then you go, I don't want to get on a plane and potentially sit first class and have a meal served to me with Wi-Fi and, whatever. And so I started getting passionate about that because I tied it into something. I said before about, you're not always gonna be passionate about real estate, but when you learn to like build your business and it starts funding something you are passionate about, you get passionate about real estate again because you know what it affords you, right? I did a thing for a while where I was raised by a single mother. And there was a shelter in town for single mothers. And one of the things I would do is I would give a percentage of every single one of my speaking fees to this place that would provide beds, that would provide food, that would, whatever. And when I would get on a plane or I would get another event, it would actually spark something in me that would go, oh, that's another bed that I'm buying. Oh, that's some kid is eating because of me. And all of a sudden I got passionate about doing events again. So if you're not passionate about something within the real estate industry or whatever you're doing, it's because of the part of it that you're focused on. Okay. And when you can learn to connect that and realize what it is that does to allow you to do things that you are passionate about, you'll get passionate about that thing again because you know what it's providing.
So back to when you were the agent, Jared, because you were a very successful agent in your own market, what are one or two things that our realtor listeners can take from what you did very successfully?
There's 50 things we could go over, but honestly, I think that as technological and everything we've got, and I'm all about technology and social, I've got a big following on social, I believe in the internet. I think that we are kind of losing grasp though, on the thing that is the ultimate, way to not be disrupted, which is things like your database and your network. Like they're all that matters. We did, when I built my business as an agent, I built a thing called the Core 100, which was 100 different businesses or industries that I could be networking with that were just as committed to me as I was to them. Okay. So we had reciprocal relationships. Everybody in that Core 100, if they were to go buy or sell a house, they were using me. And I was finding business for them. And this thing, you can go online. It's free. Go on YouTube, Jared James Core 100. You can learn all about it. There's a video of me looking like a 12-year-old talking about it, actually in a convention center in Canada. And I think that we're kind of losing sense a little bit, where it's like people are constantly climbing uphill. They're constantly trying to convert cold leads. They're constantly trying to convert social leads. They're constantly trying to do whatever. And my message is simple. Like, all of the value in our business is post-close. When you look at the lifetime value, there was a study done recently that the lifetime value of a real estate client is $117,000. It's way more in Toronto. But the majority of that 117 is not pre-close. It's not the cold leads. It's after close. It's post-close. It's all the referrals. It's all of the repeat business they do. It's all and I just think we're filled with an industry that spends more time building drip campaigns to follow up with cold leads than we do to build follow-up systems to maintain relationships with people who already like us, trust us, and know us. And that is a system that is broken, okay? So I would tell you, database. The size of your business will be determined by the size of your database, okay? So get focused in on that database, get focused in on the right side of the transaction post-close. The transaction doesn't stop at the closing, it starts at the closing. And that's how a business lasts right now.
Yeah, I've heard you talk a lot about visibility over ability. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, it's simple. Like, we have core principles that we teach to our students, right? One of them is marry the principle, date the model. You know, there's principles that are tried and true. You know, the idea of getting in front of people at the time they need you before a competitor. That's true today. That's true 500 years ago. That's true 500 years from now. Now you date the model. You date the strategy, because the strategy is no longer the phone book. You know, like, things change. Right. And so that's a core principle. One of the other core principles is visibility trumps ability. It's really simple. Like the best isn't what always wins. It's the person who's an option. And so, you know, I did an Instagram video recently where I talked about our job in this business is to get people to know us, KNOW, so they have the chance to know us, NO, okay? Right. Our job is to get them to know us, KNOW, so they have an opportunity to know us, NO. Because the more people I give an opportunity to say no to me, the more what I'm going to get. Yes. So visibility as a business is our number one goal. And how you do that visibility can come through content, can come through your network, can come through referral groups, can come through your database, but every day we need to be looking at, what am I doing today to be visible to someone who never heard of me before? So they have a chance to know me, KNOW, so they have an opportunity to say no to me, NO, right? So visibility always trumps ability. The best is almost never who wins. It's the one who's an option. And I'll say this one thing about that. For everyone listening right now, go look in your MLS and go pull up over the last 12 months how many transactions happened. Then subtract your number of transactions in the last 12 months. The number you're left with is the number of people who bought and sold real estate and didn't use you. The question you want to ask yourself is why? And in most cases, it's because you weren't even an option. That's why. You got to get visible.
So before we let you go, leave us with one tip that, you know, a realtor today can tactically take to use to grow their business right away.
Yeah, that's. I think we live in a content world, right? We've already shared a bunch of things, but honestly, go look at your emails, go look at your text messages. The questions that your people ask you, that's the content you need to be making, even if they're super quick, because it means that your marketplace cares about it, okay? I've been really big on this lately, and I really do mean this. Like, I've been pushing this home on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all these places. Like, consistency is undefeated, okay? Like, it's like Father Time. Consistency is undefeated. And a lot of people hear that and they go, you're right, he's right. I need to get more consistent. And a lot of times I look back at those people and I say, baby, you are consistent. Like, just not doing the right things. Like, you consistently get up late. You consistently skip your calls. You consistently find a reason to not go to the gym. You consistently say yes to too many brownies. You're consistent. And it's undefeated. It's winning right now. But the good news is it works on the other end as well, right? Like, we get what we deserve, and consistency is undefeated. So it's never too late to start new patterns. It's really that simple.
Jared, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule today. For someone maybe looking to join your coaching program, get in touch with you, follow your journey, what's the best ways that they can do that?
I mean, our website is just my name and then today. So it's jaredjamestoday.com. I'm on like all of our stuff on all social. I'm Jared James Today. But the easiest way is just go to connectwithjared.com. If you go to connectwithjared.com, all of our stuff is there. All the social profiles, everywhere I'm active, all of our info, our podcast, everything is there. So just go to connectwithjared.com. Guys, reach out anytime. I'll answer any questions you have. I love connecting with people. Been a pleasure being on. Seriously, thanks for having me on. I'm glad we were able to make it work. I'm sorry that it took a little bit, but thanks for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
On behalf of myself and all our viewers, a very big thanks again. So don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel. We have an amazing lineup of guests for future shows that you don't want to miss. I'm Sehr Mahmood, and thanks for watching.
Thank you.